Good morning. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is going to be a water bath canning, and we are going to can blueberry jam. Now, of course, it's the dead of winter and we don't have blueberries in the stores, but I did purchase these blueberries last summer and put them in the freezer until I was ready to can them, which is going to be today. I'm going to make them into jam and get them canned. I've assembled all the ingredients that I'm going to need. For this particular recipe, the basic ingredients you need to make a jam is the fruit, some sort of sweetener, and a little bit of lemon juice to help activate the pectin. To form a jam, the natural pectin in the blueberries will help to thicken it up. But in order to do that, you've got to combine them with some sugar and some lemon juice. The sugar and the lemon juice bring out the natural pectins in the blueberries. I thought this would be a fun recipe to go over with you and to show you the basics of how to water bath can. So the recipe I'm going to use is from Pomona's Pectin company. You can make jams with quite a few fruits with no pectin added, and all you would need would be the fruit, some sugar, and a little bit of lemon juice for acidity. And the fruits that are very high in pectin are apples, blueberries, cranberries. The fruits that are more low in pectin are strawberries and cherries. Pectin is a type of fiber that's found in high amounts in the peels of fruits and also in fruits that are not as ripe. As fruits ripen, the pectin within the fruit breaks down and it doesn't help to create a gel. So when you're creating a jam, if you want to do it without adding any pectin, you could add a few less ripe pieces of fruit into your mix. This particular brand of pectin is good when you don't want to add a lot of sugar. Commercial pectin is usually derived from apple peelings and citrus peelings. And Pomona's pectin is derived from citrus peels. I'm letting it thaw out here. I live in California, so we don't have blueberries growing here, but we do get them in our grocery store. These are imported from Mexico and Peru. And occasionally we'll see Maine blueberries or Michigan blueberries, and I always like to grab those whenever I can. So we've got the berries. We've got a sweetener. In my case today, I'm going to use maple syrup rather than sugar. We've got our 100% lemon juice. Then you can get whatever spices you might want to add. You don't need to add any spices, but I'm going to add a little pinch of cardamom because it's got a little tart, lemony characteristic to it, and I like it in my fruit jams. And I may add some vanilla. I haven't decided. I think I probably will. And then this particular recipe should make about 4 to 5 pints, but I'm going to use 4-ounce jars because I'd rather have smaller amounts. And so I'm going to get ready about 9 jars. We also need a measuring container to mash up our blueberries. We need our other canning supplies, such as a jar lifter, a funnel. This is our headspace measuring tool. I've got this ready to mash my blueberries. We have on the stove a stock pot. Now any stock pot will do. You can buy stock pots that are specially produced and manufactured for water bath canning, but any stock pot will work. And at the bottom of the stock pot I've put a little mat, either a mat or a grate, and that's just to keep your jars from sitting right on the bottom and getting too hot with the heat in the canner. I'm going to put my 9 1/4-pint jars in here, cover them with water, and let them start warming up because we're going to make jam, which is going to cook on the stovetop. It's going to be a hot product when we put it in the jars. So we want it to go into hot jars that have been warmed up, and then the hot jars are going to go right into our hot canner, hot water in the canner. So let me get that going. Alrighty, I washed my jars with soap and water and rinsed them real well, and now they're in the water bath and they're covered with a couple of inches of water, so we're going to let those warm up. I had really a difficult time finding 1/4-pint jars this year. I had to order these from Amazon, and I went to Walmart just a few days ago and I did not see any quarter pint jars at all. So it's kind of hit or miss what you find at the store. Now let's talk a little bit about Pomona Pectin. The package comes to you like this. You've got some recipes and some information on this pamphlet. And you've got a packet of calcium, which you make a little calcium water. And the calcium is what helps the pectin gel when you're using Pomona Pectin. Instead of sugar, it's the calcium water that works. So the good thing about using this is I can use whatever kind of sweetener I want. I can use artificial sweetener even. And this is the packet of pectin itself, 1 ounce. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this calcium with some water in a jar to the proportions that are specified on the box, which is 1/2 teaspoon in 1/2 cup of water. I'll mix it up and then I'll use the, after it's mixed, I'm going to just need, I believe it's 2 teaspoons for this recipe, and the rest I can store in a jar in the refrigerator for my next canning session. Here is the information from the back of the box. In case you're interested in taking a screenshot, you can pause and do that. 1 box makes up to 22 half-pint jars. Here is the leaflet that's included with some of the recipes. Recipes for jam, jelly, their website, PomonaPectin.com. If you have questions, they've got a hotline, an email, a snail mail to write to them. And the basic directions are wash and rinse your jars. Let stand in hot water. Bring lids to a simmer. Prepare calcium water, 1/2 teaspoon calcium powder and 1/2 cup of water in a jar. Shake well, I've already done that. You prepare your fruit. Measure the fruit or juice into a pan. Add the lemon or lime juice. Add the proper amount of calcium water. Then you measure the sugar into a separate bowl and put your pectin powder mixed into the honey or the sugar. I'm going to be using maple syrup. Then after that's done, you bring your fruit or juice to a full boil. Once it's boiling, you add the pectin and the sweetener that you're using, which in my case is the maple syrup. Stir vigorously for a minute or two to dissolve the pectin while it returns to a full boil and remove from the heat. Next, you fill your jars to within 1/4 inch of headspace of the top of the jars. Wipe the rims. Put the jars back in the boiling water. You're going to bring it back to a boil and boil for 10 minutes. So that's what we're going to be doing next. I have rinsed my blueberries off and under the faucet. They're still partially frozen, so I may have to wait a little longer. But you want to kind of look through and make sure there are no bad berries, stems, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do that for each container before I put it in to be mashed in a measuring cup. And I believe each of these is a 10-ounce container, or I'm sorry, an 18-ounce container. So each of these is a little more than a pound, and it should make about the 4 cups that I'm needing. I sat down and calculated it last night, and I believe I'll have just about 2 1/4 pounds should make about 4 cups according to my recipe. So I've got about 2 1/4 pounds, which should equal out to approximately 4 cups. So we touched on briefly a little earlier, there are several ways that you could make this jam. Since blueberries are naturally high in pectin, you could just mash your blueberries, add them to a pan with sugar and lemon juice, and cook them for about 15 minutes until they're thickened up, and then can them that way. If you use regular dry pectin, kind you would normally find in the grocery store or Walmart, then you would add that pectin to the fruit mixture at the beginning of your boiling time. And then once everything is boiling, you would add the sugar, bring it back to a boil, and then you would jar it up at that time. But since we're using the Pomona Pectin, we're following their specific directions, and I don't need to add a lot of sugar, so that eliminates that worry. And since we're talking about the different kinds of pectin, there is also liquid pectin, and this I really like to use. This is very simple. What you do is you prepare your fruit, your sugar, and your lemon juice, bring it to a boil, After it's boiling, you add however many pouches of liquid pectin that the recipe calls for. And I like the fact that it's liquid and it's pretty easy to mix it in, and you don't have to worry about it dissolving. So sometimes this is a little pricier than the powdered pectin, but for convenience sake, I really like this. And using pectin can be pricey. These packages of pectin are not inexpensive, so that's why a lot of people opt to make their jams without pectin. What you have to do in that case is you have to cook it for like 15-20 minutes to let it thicken up. And personally, I don't want to have my jam cook that long. I like to keep some of the nutrients in there. I think that you cook a lot of the vitamins away when you boil it for too long, so I prefer to just add pectin to mine. Okay, here we go. Squishing down our blueberries. Good therapy. So when I'm done squishing these 2 blueberry containers, I should have about 4 cups of mashed blueberries. You don't need to mash them up as much as I am. I like to have my jams a little smoother, but if you like them a little chunkier, just sort of halfway mash them down. Don't have to mash them all the way. This is a really good buy we found on our last trip to Costco. 5 vanilla beans for $10. They had at the grocery store 1 vanilla bean pod for like $10. So this is 5 for the price of 1. So if you want to try some fresh vanilla beans, all you do is slice open one of the pods and scrape out the inside into your dish, whatever you're making. So in this case, I'm going to use about a teaspoon of the inside vanilla for my jam. Wow, I just popped the lid off of this vanilla, and does it smell heavenly. Smells so good. So we're going to grab one of these vanilla bean pods. I'm only going to use about half of one. I'll show you how easy this is. Take a knife, cut it approximately in 2, and put this unused portion back with the others. Then all you want to do is just kind of slice this about halfway through, not the whole way, and then you scrape out the vanilla paste from inside the skin. It's kind of hard to do it one-handed. Okay, what I ended up doing was took the knife and ran it inside the bean and sliced one side of it there. You can see I've already got a little bit of the paste on my knife. So I'm going to go inside and scrape out the inside paste. Now if you don't have a vanilla bean, you can certainly use vanilla extract. Or you can leave the vanilla out if you don't want any vanilla. But I think it'll give it a little extra nice flavor. So we're going to split this open. Take the knife, kind of scrape that paste out of there. And I'm going to get as much as I can out of this and add it to the jam. And it just smells, I'm telling you, it smells so heavenly. So lucky, we have 4 cups or a quart of mashed blueberries, so that worked out perfect. So we're going to add this to our cooking pot here. I'm just using about a 4-quart pot. And here's a tip for people that are new to cooking. You want to use a pot for making your jams that it's a thick pot that doesn't have thin walls, because thin walls tend to get hot spots and burn. This is some of the vanilla bean paste that I scraped out from inside, and I'm going to keep scraping this and get as much as I can to just add this right into the blueberries. And I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of cardamom. Meanwhile, our jars are simmering. The lids are in a bucket of warm water. It doesn't have to be too hot. It was hot initially, but it's taking me a little bit of time to film this. Okay, I'm going to take 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup. And this is maple syrup also that I got at Costco. To this, we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of pectin. Okay, so we've cut open our packet of pectin. I'm going to take 2 teaspoons out of here and then just fold the top over and save the rest of this for next time. So there we go, 1 teaspoon. And a 2nd teaspoon of Pomona's Pectin. And we're going to mix that up until it's well blended. If you're using sugar, the process is the same. You would just mix the pectin in with your sugar until it's well blended. Kind of get the lumps out against the side of the jar. I think this would be a lot easier to mix in with a product like granulated sugar rather than a liquid product. Keep stirring, keep stirring. A whisk would have probably come in handy here, but I didn't think of it. My whisk is pretty big. I don't have a small whisk. So we'll keep vigorously mixing this until it's all mixed in nicely. Okay, I've stirred this rather well for a few minutes. The pectin is pretty much dissolved into the maple syrup. Okay, we are going to start boiling our mixture here, which is the calcium water, the spices, the blueberries, and the lemon juice. So I'm going to put this on a kind of a medium-high heat and start stirring and boiling. This is coming along nicely. Look at that beautiful color. I'm going to just keep mixing and waiting for this to come up to a full boil. Okay, we're almost there. And you want to stir this so that the bottom doesn't burn, particularly if your pot is a thin-walled pot with hot spots. I really like to use my enameled cast ironware for this type of a job. Okay, we've reached that nice boiling point here. Keeps boiling. I can't stir it down. I'm going to add the maple and pectin mixture. And we're going to keep stirring this until it comes to a boil again. Which doesn't look like it's going to take very long. It was good and hot before I got that pectin and syrup mixture in there. Okay, it's been about another minute. It's starting to boil, so we're going to turn off the heat. And now it's time to fill our jars. I'm going to remove these one by one. Being careful not to splash boiling water on myself. Ordinarily, you would fill these one by one and replace them back into the hot water, but the Pomona Pectin's recipe advises against doing that. They advise you to fill these all at once, then put them all back into the water. So that's what I'm going to do. And our last jar. Whoops. Get a good grip on it. Okay. Going to grab the ladle. And you want to have these hot jars on an insulated surface. So I have this dishwashing towel, and I also have a wooden cutting board there, so that's a nice insulated surface. Too cold of a surface and you put a hot jar on it and the jar could crack. So let me mix this up, get everything nice and even, and we will fill the first jar. It's going to need a little bit more. We want to fill this to just about a 1/4 inch headspace from the top. Most of your jams and jellies require a 1/4 inch headspace. And how you can tell is with your canning kit, you'll get a little headspace measuring tool. This is a 1/4 inch headspace, so I could actually put a little more in this jar. And we also want to make sure there are no bubbles in there, so you want to debubble with some sort of a stick. So I'm going to add just a little bit more to this jar, just to bring it up to the 1/4 inch headspace. Okay, let me measure this again. I believe that's about right. Okay, on to jar number 2. Gosh, I might have done that one in one fell swoop. Yep, 1/4 inch headspace. Yay me! Jar number 3. Looks approximately right. And I can kind of tell if I look at my funnel. If I give it about a 1/4 inch from the end of the bowl to the beginning of the jam, I know I've got about a 1/4 inch headspace. This is looking so good. So good. I love blueberry jam. Let's see how that one looks. It looks about right. Wow, this is really wonderful. I'll probably have extra. I can only fit 9 1/4 pint jars in my Waterbath canner. So if I have extra, I'll just put it in a jar and put it in the refrigerator and we'll enjoy it right away. Okay, we're running low on our jam. I've got one more jar. And I can tell by looking at it that it is setting up already. So let's get these rims cleaned and get the lids on. You want to take a moistened towel and clean the rims and the area where the rings attach. Each jar. And this is a time too to check. Well, my jars are new, so I wouldn't expect them to have cracks. But if you have any kind of a cracked edge here, that jar will not seal. So you want to remove it if you do find a jar that's cracked like that. You don't want to screw these on too tight because that will cause your lids to buckle and it can cause your jars to break. You want this to be just slightly tight, just like that. And that's to allow the little bit of air in that 1/4 inch of headspace to vent out of your jar during the processing time. Okay, we've got all our lids on, fingertip tight. We're going to go back into the hot water bath. I've had this still simmering. I'm going to start to turn it up now so it can boil quickly. So let's get all of our 9 lovely 1/4 pints back into the canner. Now you need to have at least 2 inches of water over the top of your jars. And I do have approximately 2 inches. Because this has got to come to a rolling boil, and it's got to boil and warm these from every direction. Okay, one more to go. Okay, every jar is in there. We are going to wait for this to come to a rolling boil, and then we will cover it. Well, I'm going to cover it anyway right now while I'm waiting for it to boil. That'll help it to boil more quickly. But I'm going to have to peek in here periodically, and then when we notice it's got a nice rolling boil, we'll set the timer for 10 minutes. It's nice if you have a glass lid and you can see what's going on inside, but I don't have a glass lid for this pot. This is our leftover, and look how that has set up. I probably could have used just 1 tablespoon of pectin, or teaspoon. There it is. It's beautiful looking. So this is the leftover jam from the pot. It's set up very nicely. For me either. I like my jam a little bit on the soft side. So this is great. So let me give it a little taste. Oh gosh, that's good. Just a little bit of sweetness from the maple, but the blueberry flavor really comes through because you don't have more sugar than you have berries in this type of a jam. Okay, our water has come up to a nice rolling boil. We're going to set the timer for 10 minutes. If your altitude is above 1,000 feet, you need to add 5 minutes of processing time. And if your altitude is above 3,000 feet, you need to add 10 minutes of processing time. So that would be a total of 20 minutes. If your altitude is above 6,000 feet, you have to add an additional 5 minutes on top of that. Because the cooking time for water bath canning depends on altitude, and if you're below 1,000 feet, then you cook for the standard time that's given in the recipe. But if you're above 1,000 feet in altitude, you have to make some adjustments. You have to add a little time on. Whereas if you're pressure canning, you don't add time onto your recipe, you add higher pressure to your canner. But we are not pressure canning, this is just water bath canning. It's really boiling away. I'm going to cut my heat down a little bit. I want it to keep boiling, but I don't want my water to kind of boil out. Okay, our 10 minutes of processing time is up. Now, and you can see it's boiling away in there, nice, a good rolling boil. We're going to turn this water off completely. I'm going to let this cool down for about 5 minutes and then remove the jars. And we'll see what we've got. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. I had this crooked a little bit to let the steam out. And let us see what we have. Everything looks good. We're going to remove the jars now and allow them to cool. So we'll get our handy dandy jar lifter. It's always hard to get that first jar out. There we go. And they advise us to not tip the jars when we take them out. So there's one. Popped as we were taking it out. There are two. You can hear the jars pinging as they cool slightly. And that ping indicates that the lid is sealing down. So we love to hear that sound. Okay, so we have 9 beautiful 1/4 pints blueberry maple jam. We're going to let these cool for 12 to 24 hours. Once they're completely cool, we'll remove the bands. I'm pretty confident that these are all going to seal. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. The water looks clear, so I don't believe we had any siphoning. If you have siphoning, sometimes you have to worry that your jars might not seal because some of the contents might be between the rim and the lid, and that will prevent it from sealing. So that's the main reason why we don't like siphoning. Alrighty, those look beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and we will talk to you all again next time. Bye bye.